Did you hear that Winnie the Pooh is in the public domain? Wow! Just think of the creative possibilities.
Oh, bother.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Yes, turning a piece of childhood iconography into a horror mascot is not the most original thing in the world, but unoriginality is not the opposite of good. It could be a campy romp like Child's Play or Killer Clowns from Outer Space, or maybe it could end up being a solid slasher in its own right. So, today, I will set aside the memes, look past the icy reception, and judge Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey on its own merits. It's time to... Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey is the brainchild of English filmmakers Rhys Frake-Waterfield and Scott Jeffrey Chambers. While the duo anticipated some modest attention on the project given the eyebrow-raising premise, the ensuing virality launched the would-be direct-to-DVD bargain bin fodder into the stratosphere. Blood and Honey would see an expanded theatrical release, recoup over 150 times its initial budget, and inspire sequels and a planned cinematic universe. Frake-Waterfield and Chambers' little slasher that could certainly makes for an enticing rags-to-riches story, but that financial success did not translate into critical approval. At present, the film holds a 3% on Rotten Tomatoes, a 1.1 average rating on Letterboxd, and won 5 Razzie Awards, including Worst Picture. Jesus. But, was this universal panning truly warranted? Well, I'll tell you one thing. I'm not satisfied calling this film a case-closed disaster piece until I've given it its fair shake. Hey y'all, if you're enjoying so far, be sure to leave a like, comment, or, if you're feeling fancy, subscribe and click the bell to all notifications below. And now, on with the video. So, can we take a minute and just not address the heffalump in the room? Forget Winnie the Pooh, what do people come to slasher movies for? Perhaps you get some schadenfreude from characters making stupid decisions that you would never make. Or, perhaps you're invested in the characters and you empathize with them through their horrific journey. Maybe you're in it for the thrill and technical marvel of the kills and jump scares. Personally, I watch slasher movies for all these reasons and more. However, just going off those criteria I listed, Blood and Honey doesn't have much to offer. Now, when it comes to setting up a scare in a horror movie, it can be difficult to pin down exactly what makes it work. That much is especially true when you factor in differing audience tastes, i.e. the sympathetic to the characters crowd versus the lol get fucked loser crowd. Personally, I determine how well a kill setup works by asking myself, does the information conveyed string me along as a viewer, or does it distract and take me out of the experience? And wouldn't you know it, the first kill in Blood and Honey falls squarely into the latter camp. It falls into the... Notice how in the shot leading up to the kill, Christopher and Mary are in a modestly lit, relatively open area. Why then Mary chooses to move away from Christopher to crouch behind this car is beyond me. Yeah, no shit, the killer's gonna be right behind her. A jump scare is like a joke. If I've already predicted the punchline during the setup, then it's a bad joke. And yeah, this is a bad scare. Now, to be perfectly fair, the next kill of the movie is set up a bit better, though it leads into another big problem I have, the visual effects. Unlike how well a scare setup works, the question of how are the effects is much easier to answer. I have eyes. And yeah, this shit sucks. This blood effect looks like it was rendered in Windows 98. I should not be able to count the polygons on my screen, but that's all I can see. So yeah, this film can't set up a decent kill to save its life, and on the rare occasion it does, this is the payoff. But hey, just because this horror movie fails in the scares department doesn't mean it's entirely without merit. How's that story? It doesn't start off too bad, actually. Right from the start, we get this opening narration with storybook-style visuals. These not only capture the tone and spirit of Milne's writing and Shepard's illustrations, but also establish the lore of the film's central antagonists. In this film, Pooh, Piglet, and Co. are not stuffed animals brought to life by Christopher Robin's imagination. Rather, they're described as
crossbreeds, who some would describe as abominations.
The young Christopher Robin befriends these creatures, bringing them food and teaching them about the world. Once Christopher Robin grows up and goes off to college, however, his woodland friends find themselves unprepared for survival. I guess you could say, if he let them fight their own battles when they were young, they wouldn't be cowards today! After being forced to kill one of their own for food— Jesus, that's raw. Oh well, it's not like Eeyore's corpse is gonna get further desecrated in the— Oh my god! After being forced to kill one of their own for food, Pooh and Piglet go down a path of burning misanthropy, resentment for Christopher Robin, and a lust for blood. And honey. Is it a little goofy? Yeah. We haven't exactly elevated far beyond typical creepypasta fare, but as far as horror twists on childhood icons go, I've definitely seen worse. And don't kid yourself, you have too.
Go to your room and you think about what you did!
You can tell there's some genuine passion behind this project, and an earnest desire to make something good. Something that can stand on its own as horror, regardless of the association with the children's IP. Which, once again, is a heffalump we will address later. So, at its core, this is a story about the shattering veneer of female safety in a patriarchal society. Bear with me. Bear with me. You get it? Because Maria is a young woman in the early stages of recovery from a traumatic incident that left her feeling violated and alone. Per her therapist's suggestion, Maria invites her friends on a cabin retreat. No men, no screens, just a cozy, secluded environment, and gals being pals. Especially these two. I really do like this friend group. They're not the most developed characters in the world, but the actresses do have solid chemistry with one another and even manage to get a funny line in here and there.
It's massive!
Unfortunately for these women, however, the veneer of safety does not last long. Two malevolent entities lurk in those very woods, both resembling toxic male caricatures, one a pig and the other a bear. I guess this movie beat the choose the bear meme to the punch. The other human men in this scenario don't help matters. It starts small. Before one of the friends, Zoe, even arrives at the cabin, she stops at a dilapidated truck shop. Zoe enters the quiet, cluttered establishment, and just after calling out to her friends that the building seems empty, a male mechanic appears from a back room and makes his presence known to her. Throughout the exchange, he's cast almost entirely in shadow, and Zoe is visibly nervous and uncomfortable. Moments later, an unsuspecting couple appears behind Zoe, effectively trapping her between them and the man. Zoe scooches around them, exits, and nothing more comes of the moment. Now, outside of building tension, one may wonder what exactly this scene is doing in the movie. But to me, this scene sets the tone for the rest of the film. Other than the slight condescension of referring to Zoe as girl, the mechanic doesn't do anything wrong in this scene, but that doesn't change how alarming the scenario was from Zoe's perspective. The message is clear. Even on this gal pals retreat meant to decompress from the weight of the world, there's no escaping the perpetual threat women face from men just for existing. This point is hammered in even further later on. While escaping from the bear, Maria and Jessica run into a group of men in a pickup truck and plead for their help. Rather than driving the women away from the threat, upon seeing the creature and believing they're dealing with a fellow mortal, the men decide to pick a fight. It's not enough for these men to prioritize these endangered women's safety. They need to be the ones to fight and save the day. And for their actions, given that they're unknowingly dealing with a god-tier threat, they are effortlessly killed, and the situation is worse for everyone. Even in a life-or-death scenario, even when a safer option is readily available, fighting for these random women's honor was more important to these men than making sure they could all be safe. This is toxic masculinity in action. As for Christopher Robin, who could generously be described as the one good male character, he's no saint either. The entire conflict in the film arose because he abandoned his woodland friends, leaving them to regress into their animalistic natures. And on 2 occasions, he fails to intervene with the pig and bear, instead electing to talk them down from killing Mary and Maria respectively. And in Chris's defense, intervening is not necessarily the way to go either, as evidenced by the previous example. But the point still stands. The fault of every tragedy in the film traces back to his previous neglect of the woodland creatures. And even when he is staring the horrible consequences of his inaction in the face, all he can do is watch and beg. Utterly futile. With everything I've described, this story sounds like a solid enough morality tale about the dangers of toxic masculinity and men failing to take proper accountability for their actions. Maybe it's not the most original story in the world, but effective in its messaging regardless. Oh, wait, hold on, sorry, I got my notes mixed up here. I seem to... Oh, yeah. Remember earlier when I said we weren't gonna address the heffalump in the room? Well, we're addressing it now. The bear and pig creatures I've been describing throughout this section, need I remind you, are Winnie the Pooh and Piglet. As in, they both vaguely resemble the traditional interpretations of these characters, Pooh especially, and characters throughout the film refer to them by these names. What's next? A kaiju film starring Barney the dinosaur? An aviation thriller starring JJ the jet plane? Now, maybe others could look past this fact and appreciate the story for what it is. But to me, any amount of dramatic weight and tension the film could possibly drudge up is shot point blank in the foot with a .50 caliber rifle the moment a character with a mutilated face says, "Winnie the Pooh did this to me." And I get it. If this film starred a generic slasher killer as its antagonist, odds are no one would even know or care about it, and we wouldn't be talking about it today. But that begs the question. If you're going to make a Winnie the Pooh slasher horror movie, what business do you have injecting this story about patriarchy and women's trauma? This goes so beyond trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. This is like trying to fit an osmium ore through a fine mesh sieve. It doesn't work. And God, don't get me started on how needlessly sexually exploitative some of these kills are. Because yes, of course Winnie the Pooh needs to tear off this woman's shirt, expose her bare breasts, before shoving her in a wood chipper. Of course, we need this 90-second sequence of a bikini-clad Lara in a jacuzzi posing for provocative selfies before Winnie the Pooh hog-ties her and crushes her head with a car. Of course, we need to watch Winnie the Pooh and Piglet brutally murder a lesbian couple one after the other. Because, oh yeah, bury your gaze is exactly what this story needed. Fuck this movie! Overall, Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey is a fundamentally broken film that fails both as a slasher and as a story. Its scares are poorly staged and predictable. Its effects are abysmal. Its imagery is exploitative and degrading to women, and while I can acknowledge the interesting lore and compelling themes it poses, that intrigue is completely undermined by the absurdity of marrying that story with Winnie the fucking Pooh. But maybe there's more to this movie that I'm just not seeing. If this movie worked or didn't work for you, be sure to let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed watching, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and click the notification bell to all so you can see new videos from me as soon as they go up. My name is Luce, and I'll be seeing you in the next video. Have a great one, y'all.